Alright, we're back. So it actually would appear as though my driver did need updated, but I don't think that was the primary issue. So we'll see if that makes any difference. But as I said, we're going to swap out the, what is this actually called? The G19 Terrible Gun. We're going to take the actual Samurai Edge. And we won't be making use of any of these extra items, but I do want to briefly talk about them. I think that these coins are a terrible idea, and I don't understand why they're here, especially in combination with the fact that there's no longer an S plus run for not using any bonus items. It would almost seem to suggest that they intend for you to use these items to clear Inferno difficulty, especially because of how incredibly difficult Inferno can be, especially during the final battle. It just doesn't make sense to have these coins here if you're not supposed to use them, and you're not penalized for using them on the highest difficulty and for the supposedly toughest challenge in the game. The crafting companion also, it's a shame that it has been relegated to this mode, um, or rather to New Game Plus and as a bonus item rather than being a core mechanic of the game like it was originally. But it's fine. The Stars Field Combat Manual is awful, because if you use it, then you're putting yourself at a significant disadvantage if you ever stop using it because you will have completely screwed up your dodge timings. So I have personally never used it, nor do I plan to. And having the lockpick and the bolt cutters early were an interesting idea, but one that really kind of falls apart when you realize how useless they are. Like, yeah, it can save you a couple minutes in the beginning of backtracking, but when you consider that, I mean, you can run through the whole game with an infinite rocket launcher anyway. Getting a speed run isn't that hard with or without these items. And it kind of diminishes the best part of the game, which is the small amount of like exploration and backtracking that is required when you normally get these items. So I just these items are an interesting idea, and I like the idea of Jill maybe starting with the lockpick. I think that that's cool. I think that she should, but the bolt cutters are fucking pointless. In terms of these infinite weapons, the hot dogger is alright, I guess. It's a flaming knife. That's kind of cool, I guess. It's fine. The Raiden is completely fucking pointless. Like, why would you use this when you have an infinite assault rifle that is also kind of worthless, to be honest, and an infinite rocket launcher that one-shots everything? And this infinite handgun, its damage is pathetic, so the only real benefit to it is the fact that it's infinite, but this game gives you plenty of ammo, so why would you use it? The infinite assault rifle can't be upgraded, which means it's just inferior to the regular assault rifle, and the only benefit to it is that Jill gets to use it on something other than easy mode. I would have maybe preferred just being able to unlock an assault rifle and adding that to my weapon pool on difficulties other than easy mode, and just making it a regular ammo or a regular weapon with standard limited ammo, and being able to find that ammo, kind of like how Resident Evil 4 did when you unlocked uh, the the hand cannon. It added it as an ammo type you could find until it became infinite, and there were actually even uh, there was an ammo type programmed into that game for the Chicago typewriter, I guess, early in development, that also was not intended to be infinite for its entire lifespan. So these weapons are really kind of disappointing. All of these extra items you can buy, they kind of break the game. Like, there's no point using them on hardcore because hardcore is pathetically easy difficulty, and using them on Nightmare and Inferno can make that mode more tolerable, but it can also break the mode apart entirely and make it pointless. It's like, why would you have this incredibly difficult mode if you can, without any penalty at all, just break it in half by becoming invincible and doing 2 times the damage, if not more, with an infinite rocket launcher? What is the point? I don't understand how these items. I think they're kind of cool ideas, the coins, because then you can kind of customize your difficulty a little bit, which is something I think Resident Evil needs. It definitely needs in future entries to have more customizable difficulty, letting you choose individually enemy health, player health, ammo scarcity, puzzle difficulty, things like that. But in combination with the lack of an S plus ranking, it just breaks this game in half. And it's like, well, why would you put in the effort to do a flawless, legitimate, under 2 hour nightmare speed run or Inferno speed run in under 5 saves to get an S rank when you could just walk through it with essentially infinite health, completely infinite ammo, and rocket launchers? It doesn't make sense. So unfortunately, all of these items are a complete waste of time, and there's really no point using any of them. And also, being able to start with 2 item packs, it's fine. Kind of like the coins, it's a little bit of a customizable difficulty thing. Completely pointless. There's no real need for it outside of Inferno mode. So we're not going to use any of that. We're just going to continue with the standard equipment for now. Where did these civilians go, right? Because we turn around, there's... I mean, he at least went, into the garage, but where'd the rest of these guys go? I don't know. And now we kind of come to the issue is the zombies are really dumb. On hardcore, this game is a complete joke. I played hardcore my very first time. I thought I would have a decent challenge because 2 on hardcore was pretty challenging. It could be. No, not here. Where's my dodge? There it is. I don't know why that wasn't working. Yeah, so... Ooh, that was close. Sometimes they can double grab you and it's a little obnoxious. But the dodge mechanic, as much as I like it, it really does break the game. Resident Evil has always been about choosing to dodge or fight, but here the issue is there's no reason not to fight, A, because you have plenty of resources, and B, the dodge is just too good, so it's not even difficult to do, whereas previously it was always a little bit of a risk to do it and required, a certain degree of skill, and I guess technically, yes, it still requires skill here, but it feels easier to do here than it has ever felt in the series. Even in Resident Evil 2 Remake, to juke zombies, you really had to kind of go in and carefully time and place yourself to juke them. Here, it's just one button press on a very consistent timer for the most part, and congratulations, you win. This is like the only safe... There's 3 safes in this game. All of the combinations are very easily located. That's right, I can't actually use this on the Samurai Edge, which is a bit of missed potential if you ask me, but whatever. This is one of the only rooms you can actually even explore in this game. One change I do appreciate is that zombies are no longer as tanky as they were in Remake 2, which I think they were just stupid amounts of tanky. One change that I'm much more on the fence about is the lack of defensive options with the knife. It's once again an infinite weapon by default. You don't have to unlock it, but it can no longer be used defensively. And from a gameplay perspective, I understand why that is, because having defense items and the dodge is kind of out there and crazy, but it doesn't make sense for Jill to lose this ability between Resident Evil 1 and 3. And again, as a sequel to 2, it doesn't make sense that it's not here. It feels like a strange exclusion. Yeah, zombies are more eager to grab you when they're getting up, which is something they didn't really do a lot in 2. But here they're very eager to do it. Then, to be honest, there's not a whole lot wrong with this section. As I've said, it is the best section, and your first time through it can feel fun, but ultimately it's also incredibly linear, and there's nothing here. There's no complexity. It's so formulaic, and 2 can get that way as well once you've played it enough, but I have 200 hours in Resident Evil 2 Remake, and I still really enjoy that game and feel like there's value in playing more of it. This game, I just struggle to feel the same way about it. We need some inventory space. And then there's these barrels, right? These barrels are such an odd inclusion because this is, again, the only place you'll find them. They don't really appear throughout the rest of the game. They're only in this city section, and if you use them, they trivialize the zombies. And if you don't use them, they trivialize Nemesis if you use them against him. So you can either choose to use them and further trivialize an already simple section, or not use them and just completely ignore the mechanic. So, like, what's the point of them being here if you don't use them? It's just an odd situation to place the player in. They're more valuable on the higher difficulties because Nemesis is harder to take down, but on hardcore difficulty, Nemesis can be downed with a single handgun, or excuse me, a single hand grenade, and you're handed like 3 or 4 of them before you even encounter Nemesis. So you can completely remove him as a threat each and every time he shows up.
This must be the subway company's offices.
I'm used to Hard Nightmare and Inferno where something busts through that door. Can't pick that up at the moment. We'll be back for it. There's our first hand grenade we can't pick up. We'll be back for those items. I also think Jill's inventory is a little bit limited in this game. The fact that she cannot obtain the assault rifle at all, other than the infinite ammo version, is like really questionable, I think. The removal of several grenade launcher types. I don't have a problem with the mine launcher being removed because it was a dumb gun. Just creating mine rounds for the grenade launcher is much more intelligent and intuitive design, I think. But the removal of freeze rounds was a huge loss in my opinion, because one of the things that kind of made 2 Remake stand out were its incredible fire physics that it introduced with the RE engine, and those are just not here at all in this game. The knife is kind of pointless. I'm not going to be carrying it around. The fire introduced in Resident Evil 2 was really nice, and it would have created this really interesting contrast with 2 if they introduced ice mechanics here, where you could freeze the enemies like in 5, especially because they were a pretty important part of the original 3, because they were Nemesis's original weakness. He was weak to those freeze rounds. So their removal is a huge missed opportunity and also a detriment to the overall gameplay because there's just less variety. They've also removed the custom upgraded weapons. You can technically get weapon parts from fighting the Nemesis, but those parts are a joke. Actually, we want to go this way. Oh, almost. He drops an extended magazine for your handgun and then a suppressor for your handgun, and that's it. After that, he drops ammo, and that is so disappointing. There's no point even fighting the Nemesis other than just getting him out of your way because he's a huge inconvenience. Because there's no reward for fighting him. There's no challenge for fighting him, and there's no reward for fighting him. So he becomes this just complete annoyance, whereas in the original game, he could be a legitimate threat. And he can be a threat here too, but for the wrong reasons that we'll talk about when he shows up. But in this game, there's no fear of fighting him on hardcore or lower, which will always be your first playthrough because Nightmare's not unlocked from the get-go. So your first experience will be on hardcore at the highest, which we've already established as a joke. Well, excuse me. He will either be a non-threat on those difficulties or a huge pain in the ass on higher difficulties, one that is not really worth fighting because he doesn't reward you like he did in the original game. He does technically reward you the first 2 times, but those upgrades are so marginal and pointless, especially because you get another G19 later that comes with extended mag and burst fire, which is mind-boggling stupid. This is another good scene, though. It's just mind-bogglingly stupid that the burst fire is not an upgrade that can be applied to the pistol. Instead, they just give you a second burst fire pistol for reasons I cannot comprehend. I will say, though, I love Nikolai in this game. Nikolai is the best character in this game by far. He is such a villain, and he knows it, and he loves it. He's so theatrical and playful. He is an incredibly charismatic character, and I'm so happy with his presentation here, and it's a shame that it seems like his death is way more definitive here than it was in the original. where there was some ambiguity there, and he could get away, and even in the ending where he, well, actually, no, he's just dead. He either gets away or he doesn't. Uh, Here, you know, it's theoretically possible he survives. We don't see him die, but it'd be tough for him to survive. So that's a real shame because he's such an interesting character. I would have loved to see him come back for more appearances. He's just done so well here. Just those 2 dogs we saw are like 2 of the 6 dogs total you'll see in this game. Only 4 of whom present any threat. Oh, Jesus, she got me. I was a little bit too early on that first dodge. This guy might get me too. Let's see. Oh. Stairs add a little bit of trickiness to the dodging. This is also something I want to comment on. This game does a lot of this, where right now these zombies are here. There's like 4 or 5 zombies in this room. But once we complete this section, they disappear. So they become pointless, because not now there's no point killing them, because when you come back, they'll be gone. And this certainly did happen in previous games, but it was pretty rare that it happened. Here, it feels like a very frequent thing where every other area you go to, when you come back through it the second time, the zombies will be gone. So whereas in original Resident Evil games, the threat was always that they'll be back. If you dodge a zombie now, you'll have to dodge them again later. You'll save the resources. Of course, you risk taking damage, but if you do not take damage and you successfully avoid them, you save the resources, but they remain a threat you'll have to deal with later. That is completely gone in this game, because in most places, even in the places where I did kill zombies just for fun, if I just left them alone, they would be gone the next time I come through anyway, or at least replaced by other enemies. So there's literally no point fighting them at all, because they will not be a threat when you come back around. They are literally just a waste of ammo. There's no careful consideration to be made there other than, you know, do you prefer shooting this zombie to get past it, or do you prefer dodging it? And there's no difference, because the game gives you plenty of ammo. I'm just going to let this scene, though, play out in its entirety before I comment on it.
Mic off. Mic on.
So, one of the excuses I've heard a lot for the changes to this game and a lot of the removals is quote-unquote creative liberties. And I'm convinced that this is simply an excuse to justify the rushed and lackluster development of this game and the overall underwhelming delivery, final product, right? The most creative this game ever gets is having what is basically a fucking hentai scene right at the beginning of a mainline Resident Evil game. Like, that's some creative shit, dude. That they did that and got away with it, and no one asked any questions, and they just pushed that shit through. That's hilarious, right? Because this serves no purpose. These brain suckers exist here and only here. So while infection could be an interesting mechanic if these enemies persisted throughout the game, the fact that they don't, that they are limited to this area, makes it a pointless mechanic that is hardly even a threat, because they also give you all of the herbs you would need to, survive, right? Now, sure, it's possible that you could get infected more times than you have herbs, but that would be pretty difficult. And I don't mind this section as much as other people do, and on lower difficulties it's not that bad. But it can be very RNG heavy and very bullshitty on higher difficulties, and very frustrating. Because it is also very unique in that it is just a place where enemies spawn infinitely, which is not something this series typically does. Infinitely spawning enemies is not a very Resident Evil thing to do. Son of a bitch. A little bit too early on that one. The whole gimmick here is that the enemies are specifically programmed to basically only bother you when you're... Oh, jeez, this is bad. Oh, fuck you. The enemies are programmed essentially to only bother you when you're actively using those things, so they can try to catch you during the animation. And because of the camera transition, it can be difficult to dodge them even if you see them coming. Oh, and this happened to me a few times where you think you're done, but you release it just a little bit too early. And in one case, I actually finished this section and had to come back in to get the last one. It is sort of interesting that these guys will run from you. These enemies, if you aim at them, because they're kind of weaklings, right? They will run from you and try to ambush you, and that's fairly unique in the series. Not a whole lot of enemies do that. But again, it's less interesting because it's exclusively limited to this one section, which can be completed in about, 5 minutes, which is what I'm doing. And if you bring the shotgun here, you completely trivialize these enemies. It is possible to get the shotgun by taking the bolt cutters back to where the shotgun was. I fucking Christ. Again, the camera transition between the two angles makes it very difficult to time a dodge, even if you know it's coming. But I chose not to get the shotgun because it's kind of a waste of time to run back, and you don't really need it. It's superfluous. But it's sort of the one decision that you get to make in this game is, do you want to go back for the shotgun before you deal with this place? And it will help, but it's not necessary, at least not on this difficulty. I think it's more necessary on the higher difficulties because these things can take a surprising amount of bullets. Their health is random like most things. Not well, in this case, they probably are random. Most enemies actually have set health in these games. But since these enemies spawn randomly, I have to assume their health is also effectively random. They can take... Oh, jeez. Ooh. That was close. Rip. This is kind of neat that they'll just run rather than attack, but, they'll try to get a cheeky swing on you. But yeah, this seems like a huge missed opportunity that section wasn't larger, more complex, possibly also infested with zombies. Why aren't there zombies in there? It seems weird that there aren't zombies in there. And this definitely could have been a potential for a boss fight to fight, a queen brain sucker or something. Not that I think it necessarily needed to have that. I think this game would have been just fine with exclusively Nemesis as a boss fight. I actually do not mind the removal of the Gravedigger because I just didn't think the Gravedigger was that interesting of a fight to begin with, right? And it was weird that it was the only non-Nemesis boss fight in the game. So for me, its removal isn't really a negative. It's kind of very much whatever. I'll take it or leave it. But unfortunately, it was removed without replacing it with anything. And as you can see, like I mentioned, the zombies have despawned. I don't know where they went. They're just gone. So if you had killed any of the zombies here, you just wasted your time and ammo. There's no point doing it.
Not your partner.
Small moment there, but again, a hint of something good. Their dialogue changes based on whether or not you actually entered that room, where we got the fire hose. Very surface level, very artificial, but small hints and remnants of what could have been. And I suppose once we get through this Nemesis section, I'll talk about what I think this game should have been in terms of an overall vision, because mostly I have just been complaining. I do have a vision for what I think this game should have been. But first I need to talk about Nemesis, because he's going to show up here, and there's a lot wrong with Nemesis mechanically. So there's a lot of problems with Nemesis, and it's going to be hard to talk about it while dealing with him. The main problem is, on this difficulty, he's not a threat. Because as I said already, he can be taken down by a single grenade. And so since I don't have one, I do have to deal with him. Running from Nemesis is not a super viable option unless you cheese the game. Because he has a move that will put him in front of you consistently if the camera is not facing him. But if the camera is looking at him, he will never do this move. So as long as there's nothing between you and your destination, Nemesis is a non-threat. He can't catch you, and he won't try to attack you. I mean, he'll occasionally run at you, but you could dodge it. But uh, he becomes a non-threat if you abuse the game's mechanics that way. And while I like the fact that he can jump in front of you, I think he can do it too often because between that and pulling you with his tentacle, it isn't very viable to try and escape from him because at any moment he can pull you back in, even if he probably shouldn't be able to. So trying to escape is pointless, and fighting him is super easy. And you are rewarded in a small way. So on hardcore, you're super incentivized just to throw that grenade at him or shoot him in the heart. They said before the game came out that if you damage Nemesis enough before the first boss fight, he'll kind of advance more quickly to the second stage. But as far as I can tell, the second stage is a little bit of aesthetic damage, and maybe he opens up his instant kill attacks. I haven't confirmed whether or not he only uses them in that quote unquote second stage. Um, but that idea that they kind of hinted at before the game came out that you could influence Nemesis in some way before the boss fight was bullshit. You can't do it. So there's no interesting gameplay consequences or benefits to fighting him. It's just what's more convenient. And again, the answer is always throw a fucking grenade at him. And even on Nightmare, the answer becomes like throw a grenade and 2 Magnum rounds at him, right? And while it can be fun to try and fight him without doing that and to just take him down with bullets, the problem there is that he's kind of a cheap asshole because he has a lot of reach. He's very quick, especially on the higher difficulties. And he can stun lock you, which is something that I don't think any other boss in the entire series can do. And if they can, it's an oversight. It's not intentional design. Even from the very first Resident Evil game, there was a very conscious effort by the developers to make it so that if you got hit, the enemy would back off. You know, realistically, the enemy would keep attacking you. Nemesis is very realistic in gameplay in that sense that he is relentless like he should be in cutscenes because if he hits you, he's just going to hit you again. He's not going to let you run off and eat some herbs. But in terms of gameplay, in terms of balance, that's just a really shitty mechanic because you can be punched, damaged, and unable to open your menu and heal, and he'll just punch you again, and suddenly you go from full health to nothing because you got stun locked, which again is a design decision that I think is intentional because it was never fixed despite them asking about it in a survey, like, you know, what is the part of this game you dislike the least? And Nemesis stun locking you was an option on that fucking survey. They never fixed it or changed it. He can still do that today. And that's one of the reasons that I don't like playing this game on Nightmare. I mean, I don't like playing this game in general, but I especially don't like playing it on Nightmare or Inferno because not only can he kind of one-shot you almost just out of the gate on those difficulties, if you use a coin or if you're lucky you might survive, but even if he doesn't one-shot you, he can just 2, 3, or even 4-shot you with stun locking. And it's bonkers. It makes him just incredibly unfun to fight. Now, I guess technically he could do this to you in the original 2. He could kind of capture you in a grab loop, and that was annoying, but you could get out of it, and you could avoid his grabs entirely just by being on the right side of him. You know, the correct side, not physically the right side. But there's nothing really like that here. And because he can kind of adjust his timings, and because he does have, to be fair, a lot of attacks, because this is his most interesting phase, all it takes is one mistake, and even if that wouldn't otherwise be fatal, it becomes fatal. And that doesn't make Nemesis as threatening as much as it makes him annoying. Nemesis in this game is what people think X is in 2. X in 2 isn't really annoying. There's only like basically one part of the entire game where X and normal enemies come together in such a way that you can really fuck yourself. But that's good game design because X is serving his purpose. He's just additional pressure on top of you, right? That's his role, is that pressure. But aside from that, he's really well designed, and he's not annoying, especially if and when you know what's coming. You can always prepare for him by getting rid of zombies that might kind of cross paths with him, by getting a head start on certain puzzles that he is involved in, like the bookshelves. Here you can't really do a whole lot of that. And again, it kind of comes down to how little time you spend here. This is the only time, there's only about a 15-minute stretch where Nemesis is even in this phase, in his most interesting phase. So when he's here, in what we have, it's flawed and kind of annoying and not very good, but at the same time, there's not a lot of it. So there was potential here that they didn't explore, and there were design decisions here that just made him more annoying than he is anything else. I always envisioned him being like truly terrifying because he was X, but he could sprint at you. And I'll admit I don't necessarily know what that would look like in gameplay, but it's not this. I don't think that it's this. I feel like, and again, it kind of comes to the environments too, because these are smaller environments. There's just not a whole lot of room for Nemesis to even do things like that. It is kind of cool that he can kind of jump in or out anytime he wants with his tentacle, but it's limited to just a fraction of each of these small areas. There's this back road we're on now. There's the main street we started on. There's the lead into the subway station, and then there's the alley with the subway control building. And that's it. Those are the only areas Nemesis can even interact with in this game. So it's this weird situation where you don't get enough of Nemesis, and when you do get him, he tends to either be a non-factor if you just use a grenade on him, or kind of annoying when you don't. So it's just difficult to win. And I can talk a little bit more about how I think he should have been designed better, but it kind of goes into how you would have to redesign the entire game, because to me, this game doesn't really feel like it was built for or around Nemesis. Like they threw him in here out of obligation rather than saying, this is literally the whole game is this Stalker character and the whole game needs to be built around him. They built the game and they said, how can we squeeze him in here? And the result is this completely unsatisfying mess of a Stalker monster. And again, on hardcore, he's kind of a joke. He's not super fast, and even if he does hit you, it's not that punishing. Ooh, that was close. Now, he can, even if you dodge him, he can just hit you again, so you have to be careful. You can't, oh geez. You can't always use the perfect dodge, because he can just punch you again immediately. Do we get him? Oh no, he's yelling at us. Oh, here we go. Oh, that was close. Holy shit. He almost got us with the stun lock. Oh god. He is taking a lot of bullets here. I'm genuinely surprised. There we go. And that scream attack he does is interesting because it's the only time he really tries to do that. He has another move where he'll pull you with his tentacle. Oh, right. There was no point killing him because you can't even use this with the fucking samurai edge. What a waste of time. I forgot about that. God damn it. And as you can see, there's no zombies here. On Inferno and Nightmare, they add some zombies here to make running from here a little bit more difficult. But this is the other thing, right? These things that they've added, these environmental things they added, feel superficial because they're only really useful against Nemesis, and they're always placed directly in the path of Nemesis. You never have to go out of your way to use them against him. They're always just right there and presenting themselves like, hey, look at us. We're literally the thing that will beat Nemesis for you. You hit that one time as he's chasing you, and he's stunned long enough to get away. These barrels, I think each individually will take him out in one shot. So if you left the barrel earlier that I blew up, you can use that against him. So again, there's a lot of ways to remove Nemesis as a threat, and it was kind of a mistake to even fight him, because I got literally nothing for doing it. But it's not a big deal, because, you know, ammo in this game is incredibly plentiful, and especially since I have the reloading tool, at any time I could use that if I really needed to to make more ammo. And again, I feel like that should have been kind of just a core component of this game that you could take advantage of, but unfortunately they decided not to do that. So you're kind of just stuck to using it as a New Game Plus item and asking yourself the question of, is it fair or okay for me to use this item? Like, are the difficulties balanced? Am I supposed to use this on Inferno? I don't know. Here is pretty much the only time you can really prepare for Nemesis ahead of time. As soon as you step out there too far, Nemesis will appear on either side of you. And if the zombies are still alive and kicking, they can become a complication. But if you know that he's coming, then you can just shoot them ahead of time, and they become a non-factor. Oh, and I did not shoot the barrel, actually, so... Oh, there he is. I was wondering where he was. So because I did not shoot the barrel, I can once again take him down instantly. There's no reward for taking him down again, because I've already taken him down once. I just want to quickly open this, because I always forget to do it. And the other thing about the bolt cutter and the lockpick is, yes, they have a few uses, but not nearly enough. I think the bolt cutter should have been kept longer and used to open way more things, but again, that kind of would have required a much larger environment. The lockpick is used throughout the game, so it's difficult because it is used, but for nothing interesting. It never opens interesting new areas or paths. There's no reason not to carry it, and you have plenty of inventory space to do so. But it only ever gives you ammo. Shit. Oh god. Oh, thanks, Nemesis. Ah, there it is. There's the stun lock. And so on this difficulty, you know, it's not a big deal. It's like, whatever, I'll hit it continue and I'll move on. It's fine. On Nightmare or Inferno, man, getting killed because Nemesis stun locked you, I mean, sure, it was my fault that I got caught by the zombie, no doubt, but at that point, he just stun locked me to death. There was nothing I could do, so it's this incredibly questionable design of why is the enemy allowed to do this? Why can he stun lock me to death? When again, no other enemy in the series ever does this. It's a very much intentional design decision that they kind of adamantly kept in face of player feedback saying, hey, this fucking sucks. Can you stop doing this? And that's part of why I dislike playing this game on Inferno, because if you want to get the S rank with 5 saves, you're going to be doing these parts with Nemesis here a lot. And it's super easy for him to screw you over just like that. Now, I did take a little bit longer to get through there, so if I had moved faster, I might have avoided him entirely. But still, I don't feel that that changes the core problem with his design. So we've opened that, and we will dodge past you. The key to dodging seems to be kind of running into the zombie intentionally, because Jill seems to need to be in contact with the zombie's body rather than the zombie's arms, which is a little bit visually difficult and can sometimes make it difficult to judge. But that seems to be the principle. Some zombies do seem consistently harder to dodge than others, like this asshole, and I think that just has to do with him like maybe turning around or being on stairs. Again, I will give this game credit in saying I appreciate that the zombies are not as tanky as they are in Resident Evil 2, because, oh my god, are the zombies tanky in 2? It's really annoying. I think it's just unrealistically tanky. Like, the human skull simply cannot survive, like, multiple, you know, 2-digit bullets to the head, even from a small caliber weapon. It's just absurd. This is unfortunately the closest thing to a puzzle you will get in the entire game. I think that's the combination. No, hold on. Is that it? Yeah, maybe.
Unable to establish route.
Not quite.
Please try again.
I forget what it is. I think it's 322.
Valid route.
There it is. This is the closest thing you'll get to a puzzle in the entire game, and it's a joke. Like the puzzles in this game are, again, kind of like Nemesis. I feel like they're here out of obligation. There was no effort put into them. They're not interesting. Not necessarily that Remake 2's puzzles were super interesting either, but again, when you compare this to the original that had some of the most infamous puzzles in the series, there's really none here, and the ones that are here are complete jokes. So it just, again, kind of fails to live up to the legacy of Resident Evil 3 as a game. And as I said, another thing they removed was the weapon upgrades, which was another key component of that game. I mean, you can get individual part upgrades for these weapons, but you can never get a different shotgun or a different pistol. And the different pistols you can get are all bonus items you unlock that are technically like cheat items. Oh boy, and these motherfuckers. These guys are the worst, because just like Nemesis, they can and will stun lock you consistently. What they will do is they will hit you with their tentacle as they approach you, and then they will continue to hit you as they continue to approach, and then just grab you. And there's nothing you can do about this. Once they've hit you, if they're close enough, they will simply continue to approach you. Let's just go ahead and use this grenade here. No point using the shotgun shells, I guess. And we get another grenade right away anyway, so... I thought I had, I'm not sure. I guess that barrel is there. I could have lured them back, but I don't even have a handgun bullet, so not really. They cannot... Oh, they can... Fuck. They can attack you when they're on the ground. Son of a bitch. I thought they couldn't do it if they were on the ground. Whoops. It is kind of weird, actually, that they're already here. I thought they didn't appear until... Oh, no, that's right. This cutscene explains them, but they're introduced a little earlier. This is a really interesting thing that Nemesis can do, but it's, again, just kind of questionable design, because they're just annoying enemies that don't intrinsically tie to Nemesis as a... Oh, shit. I forgot about this asshole. They're just kind of annoying enemies that don't intrinsically tie to Nemesis in any way. One speculation that we had when the game was coming out was that they might act as kind of lookouts, where he would put them on the map, and then if you were spotted by one, they would call to him and alert him of your presence, and that just isn't the case. This is kind of a cool thing that they did, but it's also a little weird. It is kind of cool that he does this, but on the other hand, you know, I feel like he should be trying to attack me. But he is an intelligent creature. He knows you know, have to come out eventually, so... Oh, jeez. He might just not feel... Oh, what the hell? What the hell? Son of a bitch, Nemesis. Wow. You asshole. He just might not feel compelled to do so, knowing that you have to come out. I don't think he can come in here, though. He can come into indoors environments, but he can't come into particularly small environments, and they tend to despawn him. They will despawn him, but then he'll just kind of spawn like right next to you anyway, so it's not any kind of like saving grace or get out of jail free card. Oh, Jesus Christ. This part's really annoying on Inferno because they add tentacle zombies right here. Oh, Jesus, they're still here! Jesus. That is pretty much the nightmare section for me on the higher difficulties, that whole thing. It is a little difficult to get through. The higher difficulties are certainly difficult, but I just think that they're difficult for the wrong reasons, because Nemesis is insanely powerful, and the tentacle zombies are absolutely everywhere. This is another quote-unquote puzzle, and it's also our first major upgrade part for the shotgun, as well as another free hand grenade. I think that this was kind of an interesting idea to scatter these about, but because the environment is so small and they're so easy to find, and because you can just keep them in your item box, You don't need to carry them around with you in any way or plan for this. They're just not an interesting mechanic. I mean, if you forget to put them in here, you can still get them later. If you forget enough times, you're kind of screwed. But, you know, overall, it's not a huge deal. Again, the lockpick is used a lot, but only ever really to get you extra ammo. And there's no reason not to carry the lockpick, so, you know, because you have enough inventory space, so you never find yourself in a position of saying, well, I would like the lockpick, but I just can't afford to carry it. That doesn't happen. So again, it kind of fails as a Resident Evil game because there's no resource management. You don't have to worry about your inventory. You always have plenty of space. Even if you carry like every weapon they give you, you always have plenty of inventory. We're going to take another brief pause here.